Good evening and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the April 9th, 2019 meeting of the Downers Grove Village Council. It is my privilege to call this meeting to order. There are copies of our agenda on either side of the room. If you haven't already done so and would like to pick one up and follow along with tonight's proceedings, there will be multiple opportunities for public comment, both with respect to the items that are on our agenda tonight, as well as a segment that is on agenda item 4, which is reserved for public comments of a general nature. At that point in tonight's proceedings, if there are any members of the audience that have any questions or comments of a general nature with respect to things that are not on the agenda, that would be the opportunity to please come up to the podium, let us know who you are, and we will welcome hearing from you at that time. But first, it is our proud custom to begin our meetings by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, so I invite everyone present to please rise and join us in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to ask our fine village clerk, April Holden, good evening, to please call the roll.
Commissioner Wallace? Here. Commissioner Earl? Here. Commissioner Waldeck?
Here.
Commissioner White?
Here.
Commissioner Jose?
Here.
Commissioner Barnett?
Here.
Mayor Tully?
Here. Thank you very much. That brings us to item 3, which pertains to approval of past minutes. We have one set of minutes to review and approve tonight. Those are the minutes from our regular council meeting of March 19th, 2019. If there are no questions, concerns, comments, or changes, I would very much appreciate a motion to approve.
Mayor Tully, I move that this council approve the meeting minutes from March 19, 2019 as presented.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Minutes are approved. Before we get to public comments, which I know you're all on the edge of your seats waiting for, I do have a proclamation tonight that I'd like to read and present to a very special member of our village staff. Whereas the last Friday in April has been designated as Arbor Day to encourage the planting of trees and their protection from insects and diseases that destroy their beauty and usefulness. And whereas trees add much to our community by providing beauty, helping reduce heating and cooling bills, increasing property values, and enhancing the economic vitality of business areas, and improving the quality of life for years to come. And whereas the Village of Downers Grove has received national recognition for the 35th year for its tree care program by once again being named a Tree City, USA. Now, therefore, I, Martin T. Tully, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, do hereby proclaim Friday, April 26, 2019, to be Arbor Day in the Village of Downers Grove and urge all residents to care for their trees. That is the official day to go hug your trees, so please make sure you do so. And I would like to present this proclamation to Dan Carlson, who's going to come up and accept it on behalf of all our hardworking village staff that maintain all the trees in our community as best they can. Thank you, congratulations, great job. Thank you very much. And he's going to head out right after this and plant some trees. Okay, thank you for your patience. And now, the much advertised item 4, which pertains to public comments of a general nature. If any members of the audience have any questions or comments of a general nature with respect to things that are not appearing on tonight's agenda, I would invite you to please come to the podium. Let us know who you are, and we would welcome hearing from you. We do have someone making their way down to the podium. Good evening, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer Hosnettel. I live at 1100 Norfolk Street. About a year ago, there was some new construction on a lot that had been vacant for quite a while, kind of behind me, but next to me. And I had come to the village with concerns because there was water that would sit in the back of the yard, and with concerns of flooding if a home was built. So long story short is the home's been built, and my yard has been flooding ever since it began to be built. There are now people in the house have moved in, and a temporary certificate of occupancy has been given. I flooded on March 14th and 19th, so I'm concerned that this house will be passed off to be the homeowner in my problem. And I've been very forward with the village, with Stan and Carrie and Michael Dirksey. So I'm hoping that in this case, some time will be given to see if what has been done will work, so I can be sure that I'm not going to continue to flood. I know they've done things here and there, but to what degree, I don't know. And if it will work, I don't know. And again, as of March 14th and 19th. And I brought pictures of the grading before the construction and the home on there now. And the grading, it was significantly raised. There's a basement in the house. It's a locally poor drainage area, a very high groundwater table in the back, less than 12 inches. And like I said, it's a strong slope too, 7 foot from front to back. So ducks always used to, it used to pool back there. And I know things have been done to change the classifications of flood zone. But this property is in, I guess they call it like a depressional bowl. And I'm not sure that that was impacted by anything that was done, on the streets. There's a north neighbor who put in his own French sewer system or French drain system to take up this water that sat. He's part of that bowl. So he's probably the biggest factor that helped that property, but that one was when there was no home on it. Now that this huge home, with the basement has been put on, we are still using, well, I say we, but that new home is using his French drain system for the sump pump drainage. And that's an agreement between the two owners, so I have concerns if, well, actually, it's between, I say between the two owners, it's really between the contractor and that owner. So the contractor sold the house, so that agreement's, not really there. And this particular owner might possibly move in the next 2 years. So that agreement could be completely gone, and that's a large amount of water from the sump pump. But the groundwater at this point is what's affecting me. It's just a strong slope, and it's kind of, at least it was, I hope it's changed, jumping the swale and coming down my backyard. So I'm just going to give you, I was here once before, I just wanted to kind of bring this up again because the people are in the house, and I really don't want to start that with new neighbors. That's really a bad way to start. They seem like a nice couple. This problem has existed through the whole construction. And so I'm hoping that we can resolve it with the builder in the village and the permitting and everything. And I don't have to go to the homeowners. So that's it. I'll give you these pictures. It's the grading before and the grading now with the home. And you can see it used to be like, it used to come down. The property was higher on the sides and lower in the middle, and then it sloped backwards. Now it's kind of mounded. So that's kind of what's contributing to the water runoff. And then there's just 2 pictures I dated, the most recent of my yard that's flooding. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
If
you.
you wouldn't mind providing those
Yes.
pictures over to the handsome Mike Baker, he will make sure that they get over to us.
So-
And I thank you for coming back and sharing that with us. I did get a little bit of a heads up
Okay.
about this issue. And 3 things I'll just note. One is, as you mentioned, it is a localized poor drainage area. So it's going to have problems no matter what, and probably has for a long time.
Well, that property has, I haven't.
Right, but there's as you say, there's a bowl in the area, and it's going to have challenges probably no matter what in some circumstances. But number 2, with respect to the permit, as you mentioned, it is a temporary occupancy situation that has not been closed out yet. I understand there may be some things that need to be done before it will be closed out. It won't be forever, but we can't do that. But I understand that it may be some time to make sure that some things are corrected.
Yeah, well, that I don't continue to flood from the property.
Right, and then number 3, with respect to sub pump discharge, we do have ordinances that deal with that. So you can't disconnect the sub pump and just have it gush into someone else's property. So whether there's an agreement or not about using that French drain, the property owner is going to have to do something to be in compliance. I don't know the specifics, but I know that we have an ordinance that we changed some time ago about sub pump discharge, and it's not something that you're just allowed to spurt off onto your neighbor's property. So that homeowner will have to do something to maintain compliance, whether it's the use of the French drain or something else. But that's an existing requirement that exists regardless of this current situation.
Well, there is, I know on this new construction, there's a title, there's a, what do you call it, like a note attached to the title, that they have to maintain their system, and there's dry wells, basins, there's all sorts of
Right.
retention on that property.
Covenants that run with the land.
Yeah,
would
but
run
my
with future
concern
owners too, sure.
is that someone may buy that house that's taking on their sump pump water and say, I don't want to do this. And if that's the case, the amount of water will be unbelievable.
Right. Well, my point is that even if that doesn't work out, they would have to find some other way to remain in compliance with village ordinances, is my point. So that may be the solution now, but if your concern is the solution
The new
may go away.
homeowner is what you're
sure.
saying. Okay.
Sure. It doesn't matter who the property owner is.
Okay.
So hopefully it'll be satisfactory.
Okay.
But thank you for coming and
Okay,
sharing it
thank
with
you.
us. Appreciate it. Any other questions or comments of a general nature from members of the audience with respect to things that are not on tonight's agenda? Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, Liz Chalberg, 1132 Curtis Street, President of Downers Grove Historical Society. I want to invite every citizen in Downers Grove and surrounding areas to our Founders Day celebrations that are coming up starting April 27th and going through May 9th. We have 14 events this year going over 13 days. And here is a list. I'll just let you all have one. And we really appreciate the support that the council has always given the Historical Society. The museum is once again going to be doing Country in the Park, which is just absolutely a great event. We've got golf, we've got wildflower walks, we've got a tour of Avery Coonley School. We have a lot of great events coming up and invite the entire community to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you sharing that information with us and everyone watching at home. It's a handsome-looking poster. Thank you. Any other questions or comments of a general nature from members of the audience? Questions or comments of a general nature? Very good. Hearing no further, thanks to those who spoke already, we will move on to item 5, which is our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Mayor Tully, I move the council approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to any items on tonight's consent agenda? Questions or comments from members of the village council? May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl? Aye. Commissioner Wallace? Aye. Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. Consent agenda passes unanimously. That brings us to item 6 on our agenda, our active agenda. We have 2 items on our active agenda tonight. The first one is item 6A. And I'm very glad to have the ability to do this. May I have a motion to adopt a resolution rededicating the Downers Grove Main Street Train Station Plaza as the Linda Kunze Plaza?
Mayor Tully, I move that this council adopt a resolution rededicating the Main Street Train Station Plaza as the Linda Kunze Plaza as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments on this from members of the audience? Questions or comments from members of the village council? I just want to say that I was glad that we once again included the criteria that the village's policy sets forth regarding the renaming of public buildings and facilities in our community. The criteria are high, and it's probably why there are very few buildings and places in the community that are named after individuals, because you really have to be an extraordinarily special person with a long history of making a big difference in our community in order for that to happen. I won't go through the criteria because we previously workshopped this item, but it is beyond question that Linda Kunze exceeds by far the criteria for having this public space named after her. Her accomplishments, her contributions to this community, her impact on past, present, and future citizens of Downers Grove is beyond measure. And it is, as I said earlier, I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to make this happen during my tenure as mayor of Downers Grove. I want to remind everybody that there will be a ceremony, and I'm assuming this vote's going to go the way I think, because when I talked about the criteria, one of the other things this requires is a supermajority vote of the village council. So this is not easily done. But if I know my fellow colleagues, I'm going to get a little bit ahead of myself here and remind everyone that there will be a ceremony formally dedicating the plaza on Saturday, May 11th, 2019 at 10:30 a.m. Village staff is working with the Kunze family and the Downtown Management Corporation, which for all intents and purposes Linda was for 20 years, to make it as special an event as is deserved. And I want to acknowledge and just recognize members of the Kunze family that are here tonight. Thank you again for sharing Linda with us for so many years. With that, I'd like a roll call, please.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The matter passes unanimously. So we'll look forward to seeing everyone on Saturday, May 11th at 10:30 a.m. Next item on our active agenda is item 6B as in boy. Do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance annexing 6120 Springside Avenue to the Village of Downers Grove, Illinois?
Mayor Tully, I move the council adopt an ordinance annexing 6120 Springside Avenue to the Village of Downers Grove as presented.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments from members of the audience? Questions or comments from members of the Village Council? Hearing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye, that matter also passes unanimously, and that brings us to the end of our active agenda and on to item 7, our first reading or our workshop agenda. We have a number of items on our first reading or workshop agenda tonight, and just so everyone knows, this is a less formal part of our meeting where items are presented for information and discussion purposes only. We will take no final formal action on any of these items here tonight. Typically, we mix things up a little bit and ask our fine village manager, Dave Fieldman, to introduce these items or to ask another member of our exceptional staff to do so on his behalf. Typically, we ask after the presentation from either the staff member or the petitioners, we'll open it up for questions from members of the Village Council, and then we'll open it up for any questions from the audience. So with that, good evening, Mr. Fieldman. How are you tonight?
Good evening, Mayor Tully. Just fine. Thank you so much for that introduction. There are 6 items on tonight's first reading agenda. The first 5 of them will be presented by our Community Development Director, Stan Popovich.
Good evening, Mr. Popovich. How are you?
I'm good, Mayor. Nice to see you this evening, and council members as well. The first item on the agenda tonight is a historic landmark at 5158 Main Street, the Main Street Downtown Cemetery. So obviously it's a downtown cemetery, so it's on Main Street, the west side of the street, between Grove Street and Curtis Street. You see the property outlined here in purple. The Emmets Building is just immediately to the south, and then the parking lot to the north of that there. The cemetery is a historic cemetery constructed in the 1850s, and it was a final resting place of many of the village's founding fathers, including some war veterans and some freed slaves as well. Samuel Curtis actually donated this land as part of his sheep pasture to be the cemetery for the village's founding fathers there as well. The village worked with the Historical Society to develop this map of the gravestones that are out there, and we've identified 28 of the stones, the grave markers that maintain historic significance. These have been identified in this map as well as the written documentation that's provided in the packet as well. Those are the most significant 28 grave markers out there. You can see a few of them pictured here, also pictured in the packet as well. Those would require a certificate of appropriateness if things were to change or to be improved. But what does not require a certificate of appropriateness would be changes to other grave markers, any landscaping, fencing, the main entrance on Main Street there that the village completed a few years ago, sidewalks, and any other routine maintenance or cleaning of the cemetery, including any ceremonial stones that might be placed out there. So that could be done as it currently is proceeding as well. The ADRB found that the cemetery does meet the following criteria. It was built in 1856. It does provide a significant value as it relates to the heritage of the community, and it is a source of civic pride with many events held throughout the year at this location as well. If approved, this would be landmark number 26, and I should have added the second number would be landmark number 3 for the village-owned properties. If there's any questions at this point, I'd be happy to answer those for you, Mayor, and the council members.
Thank you very much, Mr. Popovich. Any questions, comments from members of the Village Council? It is, once again, heartwarming to see this. This village has, in fact, put its actions where its mouth is in terms of historic preservation. As you've noted, this is now the 3rd place in the village-owned property that we have sought to landmark. I'm very glad to see us continuing to lead by example and hope that we continue to do so. This is one of those spots that when most people saw the sign about the fact that it was going to be landmarked, but we're shocked that it wasn't already landmarked. But of course, we didn't have a landmarking statute until somewhat more recently. So I think this is one of those no-brainers, if you will. Really a remarkable place. And speaking of Founders Day, and I don't know if was that a coincidence, Ms. Chalberg, that you just happened to be here on this night? But the dedication ceremony that will be taking place on Founders Day on Saturday, May 4th, I think the founder this year is Henry Carpenter. If you go through the cemetery, not only will you see all sorts of Civil War veterans, but the founding men and women of Downers Grove, whose names you also find in the streets around our community. So ordinarily, you have to be in that cemetery to get a street named after you, so it's not really easy to do. But it really is most appropriate. So thank you for sharing that with us. Any questions or comments from members of the audience? Good evening, Mr. Davenport. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. Mike Davenport, 6636 Blackstone Drive, Downers Grove. And as chair of the ADRB, I just want to say thank you to our council, to the village for taking a strong leadership in this. This is the third landmarking, and it really is putting your, leading by example. So I just want to say thank you very much for that. I hope you continue doing it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you sharing that. Other questions or comments from members of the audience on this item? Any final questions or comments from members of the audience? I'm sorry, from members of the Village Council. Very good. Next item, please.
So the next item that we'll be discussing is at 1225 Warren Avenue, a special use and a variance for a veterinary clinic. The property is located just west of downtown on Warren Avenue, between the railroad tracks and Warren Avenue. The property is outlined here in blue. It is the last property on Warren Avenue that's zoned downtown business. Properties to the east on the right side of the screen are zoned downtown business, and those to the left are zoned M1 manufacturing. The petitioner is proposing to relocate their existing business from Forest Avenue to this new two-story veterinary clinic. You can see the image on the screen here. Being in the downtown, the design guidelines do apply at this location. They've proposed a very high-quality building, a very good design. They meet both the downtown business design guidelines, but also respect the single-family residential that's immediately to the north across the street from this property. They do have a very distinctive roof with an interesting chimney in the front there. And as requested in the downtown, the parking is also behind the building, which is a key thing there as well. The petitioner is requesting one variance from the zoning ordinance. That would be the build-to zone. The build-to zone is an area within the first 10 feet of the front property line. It requires 80% of the building to be within that first 10 feet. This is principally for downtown, so we don't have any street wall gaps. In this instance, the lot's 100 feet wide, so 80 feet is required. Petitioner is proposing 66.5 feet in the build-to zone. This has principally to do with, on the left-hand side, there's a drive aisle, a 24-foot wide required drive aisle to get the parking into the rear of the building. And then on the right-hand side or the east side, that also has to do with a little bit of architectural detailing, pulling the building back, and then some overhangs that can't go over the property line. So in essence, they're 66.5 feet out of the 100 that way. And staff felt it was important to have the building more to the east side of the lot, just to continue that street wall if those properties to the east were ever redeveloped the downtown business classification. With regard to the comprehensive plan, the plan identifies it as low-intensity office. As I noted earlier, the building has a good orientation with the front door close to the street there and the pedestrian connection to the street. And even though it's the last downtown business property, it reinforces the walkability of that area with the design of the building and how the whole building and the site's laid out, in addition to really blending in with the neighborhood to the north as well with the single family. The Plan Commission heard the case at their Plan Commission meeting and found that the special use standards and the variance standards were met. I have representatives from the veterinary clinic here with me tonight as well. If there's any opportunity I can answer any questions, I'd be happy to do that at this time.
Thank you once again, Mr. Popovich, for a very thorough and detailed description of the project. Questions or comments from members of the Village Council? All right, they're so detailed they have nothing to add. Any questions or comments from members of the audience or from the petitioners? You just Nailed it, Stan. Any final questions or comments from members of the council? All right, very good.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 3 tonight,
item.
which is, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I just said
Okay,
next
I
item, go
apologize.
ahead.
Institutional Master Plan Amendment for Downers Grove South High School. The high school is located at the southwest corner of 63rd Street and Dunham Road. The property here outlined in blue consists of the high school building, various athletic fields, parking, and then in the northwest corners are the district offices as well. The proposal to amend the master plan includes a variety of improvements to the site, including a new sports field at the northeast corner of the site, and then improvements to the south parking lot, various building additions shown here in the green and then the light purple as well, and then new home football field bleachers on the west side of the property as well. This is the property. You can see the building outlined here in black and gray. It is an institutional zoning district, so there's a 150-foot transitional area around the property within 150 feet of a residential zoning district. There's requirements in height, which are 35 feet based on the existing adjacent zoned areas of residential. Within the middle of the property shown here in white, the maximum height is 42 feet as defined in 2015. What we can see here is we can see the 3D model of the building. The south is sort of on the left, lower left-hand corner here. So you'll see a lot of those additions in green are meet the height and bulk requirements as well. So they're filling in a little bit of the courtyard in the middle there. On the right-hand side, which would be on the east side of the property here, there's a stairwell that's in the transitional area. Due to emergency egress and access requirements, that's slightly higher than the 35 feet. In the middle here, the auditorium, there's a fly tower in the audience chamber. That's really to provide the high school with an auditorium for its size that's appropriate for its size there as well. So that requires a larger stage and then obviously a fly tower to do that. In the top right are the football bleachers that are going to be new bleachers. The height is okay. What we come into here is the requesting relief for the setback. So the new bleachers would be 10 feet from the property line, where 25 feet is required. On the top here is an image of a plan view of the bleachers. And then you can see in the bottom image, there's going to be squad rooms underneath the bleachers. So when it comes to ADA requirements for ramping and to get ADA accessible seating and then to put squad rooms in order to provide enough capacity for this type in size of high school, the bleachers will be 10 feet from the adjacent property line on the west there as well. South is also requesting additional signage. You can see in the star the locations of the signage, mostly due to how the new entrances are going to be oriented here and to direct people. So this is an image. It's a little dark, so it is at night. It should look a little brighter on my screen today, but you can see the South High sign above the new entrance there. That would be around the auditorium. And then the main new entrance has a couple of new signs there as well. So they're requesting 581 square feet of signage there as well. With regard to the comprehensive plan, it's an institutional use. Notes that the village should support school district in its operations. Really with the IMP and the comp plan, we want to cluster development more towards the middle and more away from the sides of the buildings and have less development around the edges. The Plan Commission found the institutional master plan criteria were met and recommended approval. Again, I'm here to answer any questions, and I know Superintendent Dr. Thiel is here as well.
Just one quick note. A couple of council members asked me on the Monday phone calls about the use of the term interior height variation. That interior refers to the site, not the building. So there's two portions of the site, the transitional area and what we refer to as the interior area. So it's really a height variance on the interior portion of the lot. It does not refer to the interior portion of the building. That's all. I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
Thank you both. Appreciate that. Questions, comments from members of the village council?
I'm ready to vote yes.
I'll save the statements for later. Question? Commissioner Burnett?
I not so much about this particular thing, but a reminder that this is part of trying to facilitate this type of thing was part of the IMP, the purpose of the IMP designation. And I think this is a good example of how we're trying to help facilitate these types of activities, whether it's at our institutions or education or some of our corporate citizens as well.
Thank you. Other questions? Commissioner Waldeck, good evening.
Thank you. Just an observation, the The signage permit permits 600 square feet, and if you combine the two, you're actually going 604, so you're not going from 300 to 581. Just trying to understand that, so.
With the increase in signage there, I believe they were at 300 before, so that there's not a significant amount of signage on the property. I'd have to look into it a little bit more to get the numbers correct.
Well, the way I saw it was they were allowed 300 on, say, the two sites. So that's a total of 600, so what they're going for now is really like, what, 604 or something like that?
If
you add the two together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Yeah,
I understand
okay.
where you're coming from, yeah, correct.
Fine, thank you.
Other questions or comments from members of the council? We can't move this up and vote on it tonight. Commissioner White's anxious. No? All right.
Sorry.
Tried, I know. Have to stick to it. We'll have to stick to it.
Rules are rules.
Questions or comments from the audience or from the petitioner?
Just roll the next one and then I'll...
Very good, Dr. Thiele. We'll do that.
Go on to the next one, Mayor?
Please.
Okay.
Thank you, Stan.
So this is an institutional master plan amendment and a stormwater variance for Downers Grove North High School. North High School is on Main Street, just a little bit south of Ogden Avenue there. The campus consists of a school building and athletic facilities and parking facilities as well. The property is similar to the Downers Grove South, that it's zoned IMP2. Similar to Manager Fieldman's explanation earlier, there's a transitional area here as well outlined in red. There's not a lot of transition to the north because that's all zone business or other institutional as well. You can see the additions proposed here, a lot in green as well, and then some in the pink color where they're requesting relief on the height. In the center right is a common area where they're going to fill in the existing courtyard. The request is 52 feet in height because of how they have to span the top of the roofs there to create an open area there as well. And then here in the middle, there's an athletic loft and an atrium. This has required a little bit additional height to meet the IHSA compliance with height requirements for clearances in the gymnasiums and athletic events. And then on the far left-hand side, there's a stair addition. Again, not an addition, but an improvement, which is going to really detail egress and emergency egress and access points to make it compliant with today's codes. If we take a look additionally on that side of the building, which is closest to residential, you see the stair tower on the right-hand side. They're also proposing a wall on this side. They're going to be relocating the loading dock from sort of an interior courtyard into this area as well. You can see by the rendering here, the loading dock will be between sort of the two people in the background there. So a nice wall that'll screen those neighbors a little bit better than what's currently into the middle of the courtyard now. And then the stair tower you can see, and then there's going to be heavy landscaping along that wall as well. Similarly to south, the comprehensive plan goals remain as well, and then the Plan Commission did find that this also met the institutional master plan criteria. Downers Grove South is also requesting a stormwater variance to permit squad rooms to be built within a localized poorly drained area. So as you can see here, the localized poorly drained area covers the majority, or all of the football field and the bleachers shown here in yellow. The school, similar to what South is doing, is requesting squad rooms underneath the bleachers. So the bleachers will be up and then these squad rooms will be underneath it. Because this is considered an accessory structure, the code requires them to be located above the base flood elevation. However, based on existing grades of the existing track and football field and the existing grades of the former Prince Street, the vacated Prince Street, there's not really an ability to raise these bleachers to get the squad rooms out of the LPDA as required, because it would just require a lot of raising of the bleachers, which would then trickle into a lot of ramps to get handicap accessible seating and ramps up to the bleachers as well. So they've requested a stormwater variance. The Stormwater and Floodplain Oversight Committee reviewed the request and recommended approval of the request. If there's any questions on North at this time, I can answer those for you as well.
Thank you, Stan. As before, appreciate the detailed presentation. Questions or comments from members of the council with respect to North? You guys picked on South. You have no questions for North? right, very good then. We're going to do some north side, south side unity right now. I'm going to ask for questions or comments from the audience, whether it's Trojans or Mustangs on either project, from the audience or from the petitioners. Seeing there's no one beating you to the podium, Dr. Thiele? Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you so much for hearing all of this and all of your cooperation so far in these improvements. We're hoping that this moves forward next week, and we will have shovels in the ground very shortly after that. The village staff has been exceptional in all of the help that they have offered, both in working up to this point through referendum processes and feedback and all of that, and then through the village planning process. So we're looking forward to hopefully moving past this final hurdle next week and getting going. But thank you to the village for all of your support on this project.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing that. We appreciate it. Any other questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to the project proposed for either the north or south campus? Welcome back, Mr. Davenport.
Good to be back, Mr. Mayor. Mike Davenport, 6636 Blackstone Drive, Downers Grove. And I also wanted to say thank you. The staff has been very, very cooperative, very supportive throughout this entire process to get to where we are now. And so I wanted to hold that up and say thank you very much. And I thought you should know. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for sharing that. And good luck to you and Dr. Thiele and the board and all the staff on the two projects for the entire time that they will take. We're hoping to join you with some projects soon, I hope. Any final questions or comments from members of the Village Council on either project?
The question arose, when was the INT zoning designation established for the first time?
And then more specifically, when was either campus made rezoned to?
Yeah, both of those actually.
So the INP was established when we redid the zoning ordinance. It was adopted in June of 14. And then in 15, the school district came forward to rezone their properties. At that time, they knew plans were moving forward, but they didn't have them in such a manner where we could move forward with the items tonight.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from council? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. The last item on tonight's first reading agenda is an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2018 budget. And here to sort all this out, like she does every year, is our exceptional Director of Finance, Judy Button.
Good evening, Ms. Butney. How are you?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Dave said, I'm here to present the 2018 budget amendment. This budget amendment is a good news item. First of all, the village spent less than was budgeted in all village funds. And the general fund revenues outperformed the budget. So with the revenues at these levels, our fund balance, our reserves, would be in excess of our targeted levels. So we are recommending that we take that money and move it where we have needs, specifically the Major Buildings Fund and the Health Fund. The act of moving that money or making the transfers requires an expense and has to be authorized by Village Council. So we are requesting an amendment for $1.6 million in the general fund for 2018. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions or comments from members of the council? Any questions or comments from members of the audience? Final questions, comments from members of the council? Thank you very much, Ms. Butney. Good to see you.
Concludes our first reading tonight, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. That brings us to item 8, which is the mayor's report. And it's been a while since we've gotten together, so I have a number of things to report. So maybe pour yourself a cup of coffee and we'll get through it. First and foremost, and most importantly, I want to just issue a very hearty congratulations to Mayor-elect Barnett and to returning Commissioner Nicole Wallace, as well as to Commissioners-elect Leslie Sadowski-Fugit and Commissioner-elect Rich Culvaney. Congratulations on your election. As a community, we'll look forward to seeing you join us. And I also want to thank equally as heartfelt all the people who ran for office in the last election. It is a tremendous undertaking to run for local public office, but as I've often said, in many ways, local office, whether it's school boards or the park district or the village council or similar offices, they have a more direct and, in many respects, meaningful impact upon your daily life than a lot of other offices at other levels. So my congratulations and deep appreciation to everyone who ran for any office on April 2nd. Some folks have asked, and I know I have shared it through social media, but I know the village has now officially posted what the transition plan is. And we're going to be doing things in two pieces because we just have so much to celebrate that we can't all possibly do it in one meeting. So on our April 16th meeting, which is next week, we will be recognizing and thanking our departing members of the Village Council, which will be Commissioner Bill White and Commissioner Bill Waldeck, and yours truly. We will be having a reception after our meeting. Of course, we have to do something very important first and vote on some of this stuff that we talked about here tonight. Otherwise, Dr. Thiele would be very cross. We want to make sure we get that taken care of.
And then we vote yes for Eileen.
Well, I know. We have to take care of that. This is very important. And then we will have a reception in the committee room after the meeting to honor and thank our departing commissioners. And then on our next regular meeting, which will be on May 7th. May 7th, 2019 will be the final meeting of the 2017-2019 Village Council and also the first meeting of the 2019-2021 Village Council. At that meeting, the entire community will celebrate the swearing in of Commissioner-elect Barnett. I'm sorry, Mayor-elect Barnett and Commissioner-elect Sadowski-Fugit and Culvaney, and our returning Commissioner Nicole Wallace. And then that evening will be followed by a reception which will also celebrate and congratulate and extend best wishes to the new council. Some of you who have followed council meetings in the past know how this works. The old council shows up, sits down, they call to order, they do some things. We'll find out exactly what we're going to do. But really the meeting is about adjourning sine die and then swearing in the new members of the council. They will then convene under the authority of Mayor Barnett. And I don't expect they'll be doing too much work, but I don't know. We'll find out. Maybe. It's up to you guys. And then the reception will follow that. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that because some folks have asked, how's the transition going? How's it working out? I want to make sure everybody in the community is aware of those two meetings and how we're handling that. So we're really looking forward to it and very exciting, very exciting. Next, I wanted to share some things with my colleagues and with the community. I have been an executive committee member of the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus for some time. The Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus is an organization that is made up of mayors from throughout the Chicago metropolitan area, and the executive committee meets on important topics, and then there's general quarterly board meetings. There were two held today, and they were hosted in Chicago City Hall because Mayor Rahm Emanuel, who apparently decided that because I was leaving office, he had to leave office too, was having his last meeting as the mayor of Chicago and wanted to host it at Chicago City Hall, so we had that. That was very nice. He gave us some parting words. But I wanted to share some things off the agenda that I thought would be of interest to the council both today and going forward. First, I wanted to let you know that there is a new program that is being supported by a number of mayors across the Chicago metropolitan area called, and it's being organized and promoted by the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, one of my peer mayors, called the Age-Friendly Community Subcommittee. And I can share with everyone what the work plan is and the mission of that subcommittee. But they are going to be meeting on issues related to aging in place, age-friendly, how to foster and develop age-friendly communities. The subcommittee will be chaired by President Catherine Aducci, who is the president/mayor of River Forest. A number of mayors will sit on the subcommittee and may have staff representatives attend in their stead. Key partners that have been invited to the subcommittee include the AARP, Age Options, Northeastern Illinois Area on Aging, and the Metropolitan Planning Council. This obviously has also impacts on housing, but I thought it's something that the council might be aware of, might want to participate at least in some way, either directly or through staff, and it may even be something of interest for the Human Services Commission once you guys see that report and decide what you want to do with it. So that was one item. The next item had to do with the 2020 census. It is that time. In 2020, there will be another count, And very interesting presentation was given us today by members of the, if I can find it here, I took out my notes and then I put them away. Anyway, regional directors who are conducting the census at the federal level. And one thing that is to be aware of that's going to be very different is ordinarily we're all used to these big packets showing up in the mail that look very official-like and say census on them, and people will open them or not and fill them out as part of the census process. That is not going to be happening this time. It will be done primarily online and by telephone, and then for folks who don't respond, there will be up to 6 visits to their home. But there is a big push to make sure that everyone is counted. This is obviously very important for a lot of municipalities. It's very important for a lot of other governmental entities to make sure that folks within their communities, for a variety of reasons, are properly counted as part of the census. Clearly, there are some towns that are not home rule, and their census has a big impact upon their future. The folks that will be conducting the census, you can look forward to this, because they will be reaching out to their partners, as they call it, trusted voices in the community, to help get the word out that you should be looking for a postcard that will remind you to go online or make a phone call in order to self-count yourself as part of the census. So the reason I brought this up is it became very clear to me that there's going to be a much greater reliance upon local municipalities and other entities to make the census work properly. And that was something that I don't think has happened before, and it's something to look into. I don't know necessarily what that will mean for Downers Grove, but just a heads up that it's something that we may want to make sure that we're aware of, because it sounds to me like there's going to be significant, it's called the Complete Count Initiative. Sorry, I was looking for my notes here. It looks like it's going to be highly dependent upon participation at the local level. I also want to let you know that sustainable transportation funding for Illinois is a really big deal. And this is not just bridges, but also the Metro Rail. Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus has added its logo and its name to a correspondence to members of the General Assembly in Springfield about the importance of sustainable and accountable transportation funding in Illinois, roads, bridges, things of that nature, but also rail lines. As some of you know, Metro has been conducting surveys about the use of stations, and whether you have a Metro station in your town can have a big impact upon EAV. Of course, Downers Grove is very fortunate to have not 1, not 2, but 3 Metro stops in our town. It's just another issue to keep your eye on, to make sure that there aren't any proposals to close down one of our Metro stations. That would not be a good idea, particularly hypothetically, Fairview, given what our plans are for the Fairview redevelopment corridor, that would not be a good idea. And again, not saying that that's imminent or even suggested, but just some things that are going on that I think these organizations help keep our, give us a heads up on. Lead in drinking water. Some of you may have heard that there's a Senate Bill 1532 that would have potentially a big impact on municipalities in terms of replacing lead pipes into homes. I won't go into all the details of legislation because it's very complicated, but it could be very, very impactful upon communities. And yet the public health benefits, when you really drill down to them, are not what I think folks think. This is not a Michigan issue. But the good news is that the city of Aurora has really taken point on this topic on behalf of communities in DuPage. And I know that our staff is very dialed into what the leadership in Aurora is doing, but I think it's also something just to keep an eye on, because it would potentially have a big impact on municipalities, unless, of course, it was part of a capital bill. Whether we have a capital bill or not is another story, and I'm not going to get into that. Last thing I did want to mention is that there was a request at the meeting today about increasing the participation of municipalities in the Greenest Region Compact. And I was approached by some of the representatives there that are promoting and advocating clean energy and environmental sustainability projects through the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus about whether Downers Grove would be interested in being one of the communities that are part of the Greenest Region Compact. Some communities have chosen not to be, some have embraced it. There are obviously pros and cons to it, but something I just wanted to pass along to the council, and in particular to Commissioner-elect Sadowski-Fugik, who I know is very passionate about that topic. And last but not least, the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus is holding their annual gala that will be on, where is it here? And you're gonna know why I'm talking about the gala in a second. Friday, May 17th. It will be at Northerly Island at the new Hamilton the exhibition. So if you're a fan of history or a fan of Broadway, it might be something that you might want to attend. I was asked to encourage fellow mayors and also other members of village councils, if they would like to attend. It should be something very interesting. And also an opportunity to meet some of your colleagues throughout the Chicago metropolitan area. And last but not least, on a different topic, I did want to remind everyone that there is another 5K in our community that is coming up in 17 days, 8 hours, and 6 minutes. Is the DuPage Human Race, which takes place up in the Esplanade area of Downers Grove. I just gave you the number of days, but you can figure out what the date is. On Saturday, April 27th, 2019, beginning at 9 o'clock in the morning. I was told there would be no math involved in being mayor. This is also important because the DuPage Human Race is a 5K race that is conducted and benefits a number of different charities. So a number of different charities sign up as part of the race, and then when you participate, you can check which charity you want some of the proceeds to go to. And there's a number of local charities and organizations in our community that are part of the human race. So if you are interested in a 5K that's nearby, you might want to sign up. Yes, I will be running, so I can guarantee that your performance will be better than at least one person because I'll be in the race.
I'll make it 2.
Maybe 2. We'll see how many people we can get signed up. That is, believe it or not, all I have for the mayor's report. I know you'll miss sorely these reports that I've been giving for the last 8 years. And that will take us down to item 9 on our agenda, which is the manager's report. Back to you, Manager Fieldman.
Thank you, Mayor Tully. One quick but very important item to update the community on. The Village of Downers Grove and Community High School District 99 have partnered to explore ways to improve pedestrian and vehicular traffic in and around both high schools. The village and the district will be engaging a traffic engineering and planning consultant to do a few things, including analyzing the existing conditions, review the suggestions and comments that have been submitted to the district and the village by residents, students, teachers, and a variety of other concerned stakeholders. And finally, to develop options and recommendations to enhance pedestrian and vehicular safety in the areas. The consultant will start work within the next several weeks, and their report should be completed by midsummer. Once we receive the report, the village and the district will work together to review the report and decide on next steps. Happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Thank you for sharing that. Very glad to hear that that's being undertaken. Questions or comments from the council?
Just want to thank Dr. Thiele in working behind the scenes with us on this item. They're a valued partner on the community safety issues. Thank you.
Absolutely, well said, and obviously there's a high level of community interest in this topic, so we appreciate both governmental entities participating in that exercise.
That ends my manager's report tonight, Mayor.
Thank you very much. That brings us to item 10, our village attorney's report. Good evening, Ms. Petrarca. How are you tonight?
I'm great, thank you, Mayor. Good evening. 5 items to present tonight. The first is an ordinance authorizing a special use for 1225 Warren Avenue to permit a veterinary clinic with a variation. An ordinance adopting amendments to the institutional master plan for Downers Grove South High School. An ordinance adopting amendments to the institutional master plan for Downers Grove North High School. An ordinance granting a stormwater variance for 4436 Main Street, which is North High School, and an ordinance amending ordinance number 5720 in the Village of Downers Grove budget for fiscal year 2018. That is all, and they will all be on next week's active agenda. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. That brings us to item 11, which is reserved for council member reports. This is an opportunity for members of the village council to either share things of interest to the community, other goings-on that they would like to report out, or to report out in their role as either members or liaisons to other governmental entities, similar to what I did at length with respect to the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus. So I will ask Commissioner Jose, good evening, if you have any report tonight.
Good evening, Mayor. I have no report. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Waldeck.
No report, Mayor.
Outstanding. Commissioner Wallace.
No report, Mayor.
Commissioner Barnett.
No report.
I'm not going to be able to say that much longer. Commissioner Earl.
No report, Mayor.
Commissioner White.
No report.
And I have, mercifully, no further report. So with that, we'll move to item 12, and I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Mayor Tully, I move the council adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you and good night.
Who won?